guys, how's it going? My name is Zenzo Tazawa. I've got a YouTube channel called Tazawa Tanks, and this is my fish room. I've been keeping fish for a long time. I'm quite old, as you can tell by the white hair, and I've been keeping fish for well over 20 years. Kind of for me, originally I got into aquariums when I was very young by going to the public aquarium. So here in San Francisco, California, we have a place called Golden Gate Park, which is a giant park in the middle of the city. And in the middle of the park, there's a public aquarium. And as a young child, I would go to the public aquarium and see all the cool fish and all the marine life, etc. And I was always drawn to the freshwater habitats. I was always drawn to these little slices of nature, little biotopes, and just seeing these really cool exhibits that they had. And from there, I was hooked. We would go to the Japanese tea garden. I would see the koi fish. I fell in love with koi fish at a very young age. And from there, I would just keep whatever I could in a glass box, whether it was tadpoles or frogs or fish from the local fish store, and started getting serious about it in my mid-20s, where I started to collect aquariums, as a lot of us like to do, and started breeding African cichlids and getting a lot more into the hobby at that time. Hey guys, welcome to my fish room. This aquarium here is a 125-gallon aquarium. This is actually a free aquarium that I got from a client. So I used to have an aquarium service business, and one of my clients was closing down their office, and they didn't know what to do with this tank, which I had set up a long time ago, and he asked me if I wanted to have it. So I drove my truck there and took the tank and all the stuff that came with it. So in here I've got 2 Oscars, I've got some silver dollars in here, I've got some Synodontis eupteris catfish in here, which are probably really hard to find. Yeah, they're back. And there's a large pleco that's also hiding all the time. So people ask me about this aquarium. I get a lot of questions about filtration. This is all running on Aquariumcoop filtration. So we've got the Aquariumcoop sponge filters. We've got the Zis moving media filters. And then I have an Aquariumcoop power head that's powering some sponge filters. So all sponges and air-driven stuff in here. This is a 40-gallon, or actually 37-gallon acrylic aquarium that I got from a friend of mine that was getting rid of some tanks. In here I've got Brackish, which are kind of crazy aggressive. You can see one's got a tail missing there. There was a bunch more in here. I sold about 20 of them to the aquarium store just to thin out my colony, and they will start breeding again pretty soon. This tank is a 90-gallon acrylic. It's 5 feet long. So I think it's 18 inches front to back, but 5 feet long. This has all my Malawi peacocks in here. Very colorful, fun fish to have. I got this tank for free as well. This was a friend of mine. His kids were going to a daycare. The daycare was either closing or they needed to get rid of this aquarium. It had a bunch of terrible scratches on it from kids scratching it. As some of you may know, I do have a lot of hobbies, or I've done a lot of things in my life. I grew up as a martial artist, as a kickboxer, won a state title many, many years ago. I could say decades ago now. This was in the mid-90s. And I was in the Marine Corps. I raced motorcycles. I've been super involved in like weightlifting. I played semi-pro football. So a lot of people ask me, like, why do I do fish? And why would I make a YouTube channel about fish if I've done all these other cool things, racing and fighting and stuff like that? It comes down to 2 things. One, I'm very passionate about aquariums. It's something that calms me and kind of centers me as far as going through my day-to-day life. And life is crazy. We get caught up doing just life in general, work and all these other things. And aquariums and fish have always kind of brought me back to like a calm place and kind of centered me. And 2, if I thought about all the things that I've done in my life and what would I want to really spend my time talking about, filming, collecting, it's aquariums for the reasons I just shared. So yeah, I love lifting weights. And I did kind of try my hand at a little YouTube channel that I have, another channel where I've talked about exercise and things like that. But I wasn't passionate about it as I am about aquariums and fish. So yeah, I've done a lot of fun, crazy, adventurous things, but aquariums have always kind of been that one thing that really I was passionate about. Over here we have another free tank. A friend of mine, again, the guy that gave me that other Brackish tank, another nice acrylic tank I got for free. This is 75 gallons. In here I've got my Solosi. Now, a lot of people know these fish as Pseudotropheus solosi, which is what they used to be called, and then they changed the name to Chindongo solosi. So whether you're Pseudotropheus or Chindongo, these are a dwarf mbuna from Lake Malawi. The males are blue, the females are yellow. So dimorphism is very apparent here. It's very easy to see which fish are which. And really beautiful, fun fish. This is probably one of my favorite African cichlids, arguably, for sure. And that includes Tanganyikan fish, just because of the colors, the behavior. Really fun fish. This tank here is full of Neolamprologus multifasciatus, which is Mollies or shellies. It's a shell-dwelling fish from Lake Tanganyika, where the fry, they basically can hide out in the empty snail shells. The females will lay and their eggs in there, and they'll do all their spawning and stuff down there in the shells. So it's kind of their protective little house. So really fun, easy to keep fish. Next door, we've got the gold ocellatus. The gold ocellatus are a beautiful shell dweller, also from Lake Tanganyika, a lot more aggressive than the shellies, or the Mollies. So if you were to, if you're new to keeping shell dwellers, I would say probably go for like the Mollies, or like a Similis if you don't want to deal with the aggression. So what I enjoy most about this fish room, I think, is that for me, it's like a beautiful room that I can escape to in our house. So we have a pretty spacious home, and lots of rooms and stuff like that, but this is a room that no one else really goes into, that no one really else is interested in. My wife, my daughter, they don't really care a whole lot about aquariums or fish. They like to look at them, but they don't come down in this fish room at all, really. So I can come down here, it's quiet, it's warm, it's always 78 to 80 degrees. I can come down here in t-shirt and shorts with my laptop, watch a movie or some Netflix show or something like that, and just hang out and relax. And then also just sit here and kind of just look at all of my aquariums. So it's the ultimate escape cave, I guess you could call it. Just kind of like my little basement oasis. Brackish is a mixture of freshwater and saltwater. So I've got a lot of freshwater tanks, but I also really enjoy brackish water tanks, which has a little bit of salt in there for the minerals. And then this tank, it's an open top tank, as you can see. I did kind of a DIY 3D background. And in here I've got my green spotted puffer, which is a brilliant green spotted puffer. I would say if someone said to me, what's your one favorite fish, just the one, this is definitely a top 3. As far as the way it looks, the way it behaves, the way it interacts with me, feeding it, it's just a lot of fun. We also have some night gobies in this tank, which you never can see unless you are feeding, because they are pretty shy. They hide in the cave work that I built. These are probably some of my other favorite fish, and when I said my top 3. And these are a top hat blenny. This is a brackish tank. This is a 16-gallon glass aquarium that I bought, and I got these from Steamfod Aquatics. So Bob knows that I'm really into brackish fish. He had these, originally he thought they were freshwater. When he learned more about them, he sent them down to me, and I've had them for a couple years now, and they're still alive and active and feisty. They bicker a little bit. One gets a little bit more picked on than the other, but I think they're just doing quite well in this little brackish environment that I gave them.
The first time I saw these beautiful green laser Endler's live bears in the store, I knew I had to bring them home. Just to be safe, I treated them with a trio of quarantine medications to clear them of bacterial, fungal, and parasitic infections. But about a month later, I noticed that one of the Endlers was acting lethargic, and eventually he passed away. A few weeks later, the same thing happened to another Endler. A veteran breeder told me they could have wasting disease or skinny disease caused by internal parasites. Since they had already been treated with Paraclin's dewormer for tapeworms, I decided to try Fritz Expel-P, a fast-acting dewormer that targets planaria, roundworms like camelinus worms, and hookworms. You just dose 1 packet per 10 gallons of water and do a 25% water change the next day. Repeat the treatment each week to get rid of any new worms that hatched. After 3 to 4 weeks of treatment, my Endler started swimming around energetically again. So if your tank has planaria or you think your fish have internal parasites that aren't affected by Paraclins, go to aquariumcoop.com to get Expel-P because it did wonders for me.
While this fish room is a wonderful fish room, and I'm very fortunate to have it, and I'm very thankful for the work that Dean put in and the resources that Corey put towards this fish room, and we did a lot of work. But if there's one thing that I wish I did have, and that would be an auto water change system. I do all my water changes down here manually. I do use submersible pumps, so it does make it a lot easier as far as time is concerned. And I'm not carrying buckets or anything like that. And because of where we live here in San Francisco, because we have chloramine, it's a little bit more complicated. We have talked about it, so it is something that we could do in the future, but that is one wish that I do have for this room. Next up, another brackish system. This is a 40-gallon tank. It's not a 40 breeder, but it's 40 gallons. And this is a paludarium. This is the first paludarium that I've shown you guys. Paludarium is basically an aquarium with land area. And in here we have Indian mudskippers and bumblebee gobies. This is brackish water. So you might notice that there's some plants. Well, that's just a bunch of algae in there, but there are some plants that I'm trying to grow. I've got a little bit of Java fern that I'm trying in the waterfall section. To see if they will survive. I was experimenting with an anubias. It's not doing so well. And we have mangroves. So you can see right here, there's a big mangrove that's growing out all the way to the ceiling. And then there's another mangrove that I recently got on our trip to Florida that's in there that I'm just kind of letting it grow out a little bit to see how it does before I plant it. So as far as disasters, and I should knock on wood somewhere, but I've been fortunate to not have like a real disaster. San Francisco, we have earthquakes. My belief is the way that I have these racks set up on the concrete racks, the blocks, they do move a little bit, which is good because if there ever is an earthquake in the future, they can kind of, reduce some of the stress that's put on the tanks. But I did do an earthquake simulation one time on video, and did that with my 75-gallon African Mudskipper tank. And while the stands worked perfectly, simulating a quite vigorous earthquake, there was a small crack in that tank. And I did this whole test and left for a couple days on a business trip, came back home, saw water on the floor, and then saw that by me shaking that tank, I had made the crack worse and it was leaking. So I had to replace a 75-gallon aquarium that was set up for mudskipper, so it was a lot of work to switch everything out. It was very stressful. I had to lift the tank myself and everything. So as far as disasters, that was probably the biggest one. Obviously, we've had power outages, and I've spilled water all over the floor when I've forgotten that I was doing a water change or something, but we all do that. But simulating your own earthquake and breaking a tank would be pretty disastrous, I would say. Over here, we have another brackish tank, kind of a paludarium. We've got a bunch of mollies in here. Originally I had sailfin mollies. I couldn't find any female, so then I got some lyre tail or whatever. So they're just mutt mollies at this point, which is fine. I've got a couple of African mudskippers in here, a couple smaller ones, and they help to keep the population down a little bit. Down below, just an empty quarantine tank, nothing special there. Just a tank ready to go if we ever get fish or something gets sick. And then this tank used to be upstairs. My wife didn't want it upstairs, so I had to kind of make room for it down here. Normally you can see a bunch of algae in here is because my CO2 tank ran empty and I haven't filled it yet, so there's kind of an imbalance between the CO2 and the light. But in here I've got a couple discus, a bunch of cardinal tetras, a bunch of sturbi corridoras, Bolivian ram. There's a hillstream loach, a bunch of autosynclus in here,
Giant sword.
And a very big sword plant that I got from Aquariumcoop a long time ago.
Really nice.
And it just got huge. First of all, the ideal fish room is predicated on location. My ideal fish room would be located not here in San Francisco, California, but in Hawaii, where I have family in Hawaii. I love the islands, love going there for vacation, got married there. It's a place that's very close to me. I would love to live there and have a fish room in Hawaii. Also have some outside aquariums and tubs so that I could just be able to do stuff outside. It's warm in Hawaii, use the natural sunlight for some of the aquariums and ponds. So that would be my ideal situation. I've always been an ambassador of Aquariumcoop. It's a brand that I fell in love with very early on when Aquariumcoop became a company. Started to really like some of the products, loved listening to Corey and what he had to share, learned a lot from Corey. And right at the very beginning, when I was just kind of starting YouTube, I had like 100 subscribers, something, 111 to be exact. I met Corey for the first time. I was on a business trip up in Washington and met Corey. And then over the years, just had an opportunity to get to know Corey and the team a lot more through going to different events or going up to visit. And we kind of built a rapport. Corey, you know, knew my background working in the corporate world and all the work that I was doing and traveling and the clients that I was managing. He reached out and we started talking. And I think it took us a couple of months to land, you know, or so to get to where, you know, I gave notice and joined the team. I'm basically working my dream job. This is my passion. Working with aquariums, playing with fish, you know, making videos about fish and interacting with people, talking about aquariums, answering questions that people have, that members may have, helping to create content. That's, you know, for me, it's a dream job. Every day I wake up and get to do what I love. And I think that a lot of people don't get to do that, right? You wake up and you have to go to a job that you may like, but you don't love. And I was the same way. I had a job that I liked. It was a good career. I was making good money. I was well respected, but it wasn't something that I was passionate about. Sunday evening would come around and I would already be thinking about my conference calls and my meetings and my business trips and the stress and all the things that were going to happen and pile up on Monday. And while I enjoyed what I did, I didn't love it. And now I work every day. Like if it's Sunday, Saturday, Friday, I don't care. Like I just love working and love what I do. So yeah, that's what I love most about it. This tank here is probably one of my most popular and well-known because of a bunch of videos I made a couple years ago. This is a brackish water paludarium that is 75 gallons. It's a really fun tank. You've got African mudskippers, which are a goby. They're a fish, but they have more amphibious type characteristics, even though they are a fish. So as long as their skin remains wet, they can absorb oxygen through their skin, and you can see them just kind of basking or hanging out on the surface. And then lastly, we've got some 5-star generals. These are a West African fish, super aggressive, really fun to keep as long as you don't have anything in there with them that they can harass and kill. But they've spawned for me a few times. I've sold some. I sold a bunch to the store and sold some online even at one point in time. But yeah, just a really, really fun fish.
Let's talk about my favorite fish real quick.
Which is your favorite fish?
That guy right there.
All right, so my favorite fish. This was actually a gift that I got not too long ago. So if you guys don't know, this is my logo, my channel logo. I guess it was kind of like a birthday present from Corey. And there's a guy up in the Washington area. What's his?
Jason Livingston.
Jason Livingston. He's got Livingston Fabs or something like that. Fabricator's a metal fabricator. It's all cut metal.
Yeah, it's awesome.
So it's all like cut and welded together. So I love it. It's just the coolest thing that I never would have ever thought, you know, I would have something like that. So yeah, very enjoyable.
Where can we find you?
You guys can find me on my YouTube channel, which is Tazawa Tanks. And I'm also on Instagram, Tazawa_tanks, but yeah, we don't care about Instagram. Find me on YouTube, Tazawa Tanks. Subscribe if you have not done so already, because I really, really, really want to grow my subscriber count and just share my passion with more people.